What's up, everybody? This is Filter Free with Tahira Renee Kristi, and I am your host, Tahira Renee Kristi. So excited to be with you all today. I've been looking forward to this episode for quite some time because I feel like so many of us do not necessarily know how to properly, and I'm emphasizing properly, advocate for ourselves. And when I say advocate for ourselves, what does that really mean? I mean, showing up for ourselves in situations where our backs may be against the wall, where we may not have all the answers that we need to solve a problem, or we have questions, or we're unfamiliar with the surroundings and settings that we're in. So even the questions that we do ask tend to not be relevant to get the answers that we're looking for. And so being a good advocate, I know there are a lot of people who will advocate for others. Like there are a lot of people who advocate for dogs and they want to advocate to save the children and they want to advocate to, save the environment. But how often do we truly advocate for ourselves? And I'm not talking about making sure your hairs and your nails are done and making sure that you have the right outfit on or, grooming type of advocacy, even though that's important. I'm talking about showing up for yourself in spaces where you may not fit in, where you may feel like you're not properly taken care of because you don't look like the people who are ahead or in charge, or you don't have the same education or background as the people who are in charge. That becomes a little bit sticky for a lot of people because they don't necessarily know the right questions to ask in order to get the results that they're looking for. I have a background, my degree happens to be in rhetoric. So I literally was taught in college how to ask great questions, how to understand both sides of any topic so that I can argue one side or the other, or at least understand the other side so that when questions pop up that make my head go, well, why are you asking me that? Or why are you doing this that way? Or this procedure is supposed to go like this. Why are you not giving me what I need? I happen to have the critical thinking skills to be able to do that. So I do it for my family a lot. But my goal with them and anyone else that I talk to is like, you need to know how to do this for yourself. So how do we advocate for ourselves? What are the tools that we need in order to properly advocate so that we can get the results that we're looking for without cussing somebody out, without, shutting entire systems down, keeping things functioning, but still showing up for yourself and not being timid or being put to the background because you don't necessarily think you have the skills in order to show up for yourself in a mighty way. Well, you are in luck. My guest today is so amazing. First of all, she has the most beautiful smile ever. I can't wait for you to see it. And her soul is so good. And she has such a heart for the people who cannot necessarily speak up for themselves. And her story comes from a place of real experience where she felt unadvocated for and uncared for. And she has been fighting ever since then to ensure that people who are in need of support can not only be advocated for, but they can also self-advocate. So Shanaz Ikone is Nigerian. She is a licensed professional counselor, speaker, consultant, entrepreneur, and mother who advocates for increasing workplace wellness, inclusivity, and connection. She and her husband, who she's been married with for 8 years, is a trauma expert, a speaker, a social justice advocate, and wellness strategic. She is passionate about serving other women of color, especially prenatal and postpartum communities that advocate for birth equity. She is a trauma cycle breaker who wants to help end generational trauma and mental health stigma while creating holistic healing, connection, and thriving communities and company culture. I am so excited to bring this woman to the stage because her resume speaks for itself, but I want you to hear from her. And I think that if you're a pregnant woman, if you're a woman with small children, if you're a woman who may be going in for a procedure sometime soon, or you just want to know how to show up to your kids' school and advocate for them, this is going to be the podcast for you. So thank you guys for joining me. And without further ado, I want to introduce Shanaz Ikone to the stage.
Welcome, Shanaz. Thank you, man. That was a good introduction.
Right? You wrote a good little introduction. You be doing big things, sis. I'm so proud of you.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And, I'm just so honored just to connect with you as a person as well. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And so let me tell the people how we met. And I love telling stories of origin because it really helps people to understand how these how these crazy people kind of cross paths. So
Mhm.
this is another one of my Fearless Fun sisters who was in the Fearless Fun cohort, business cohort that we were both in together, learning a lot about how to position our businesses to grow, how to flourish. We were interacting with each other on a forum all day, every single day. It felt like a job in itself, but it was such a wonderful experience. And Shanaz always showed up to offer something great, inspiration, introspection, resources. She just was just such a light. And I was like, who is this girl? And then she and I were both picked to pitch our businesses for a grand prize of however much money, it don't matter. The whole point is she was one of the winners. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And when she presented, first of all, the first thing she presented, she's like, everybody, I want you to close your eyes and let's just get into a mental space of clarity and focus and peace. And I was like, this my girl, like this my type of shit. I can roll with this because you lead with love and with peace and with grounding. And I think that this is why you do the work that you do, because so many people are all over the place when it comes to something that is so important, but so neglected, because there are people who have to put things in place. But how do you, when you're in a time of crisis, slow everything down to see things clearly in order to give yourself the leg up that you need in order to speak for yourself and for the people that you love? So tell us what self-advocacy is and how you got started in this business.
Yeah. So to me, self-advocacy is always about standing up for people, flexing your boundaries, understanding your values and your self-worth. I feel like there's so many components that go into advocating for yourself. It can be hard though, especially if you grew up in a place where that wasn't modeled, right? Or you grew up in a system where you didn't have strong women or people advocating for themselves. And so for me, the self-advocacy journey really started, when I started working and volunteering in grad school. I worked a lot primarily with survivors, especially children of sexual trauma and abuse. And it was actually at an advocacy center. And I learned how to advocate for my clients. I'd show up, I'd help them, prepare for court. And I really walked them through that process. But at the same time, I didn't really know much about myself and how to advocate for myself because I was so immersed in my community and helping children, protecting them and caring for them. I really haven't learned much about it until I got into my late 20s, early 30s. And I think for me, the pivotal moment was understanding that there are so many communities of color that face discrimination, racism, classism, all these things. And I have a voice for them, but I also have to have a voice for myself. Because if I don't advocate for myself, who is, right? Sometimes we show up at the doctor and they're like listening real quick. And I know they're doing the best they can, but then sometimes you can't even get across what you're feeling or what's going on. There's a deeper issue, right? How do you advocate for yourself when you're feeling anxious or nobody has listened to you for so long? How do you build up that skill? And I think it just starts with like learning who you are as a person, that whatever you're going through matters, right? And if they're not going to listen, find somebody else that will, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a journey, it's a process.
And that is, I think, the key right there, which is what you said, is learning that it is a process, and the hindsight is always 2020. But that's what life is. It's one cycle after another process after another, and you keep going and you add to your arsenal with these experiences, but also doing the education that's required in order to get to where you're trying to go. So I know that you went through something personally that kind of opened up this and blossomed this experience for you, and it helped you go deeper into your work. What happened when you were delivering your daughter?
Yeah, so it was back in 2019. I had, just a general OBGYN. I saw them just for general things once a year. And so I just picked them just because it's out of convenience, right? I didn't do my homework. I didn't find anybody of color. I didn't look into their background, how many C-sections they pushed for. I didn't do any of that because I didn't know. At the time, I was like, okay, well, in our short time together, I feel like you take care of whatever is going on. You may not be listening to everything I'm saying, but I've been conditioned that that's the experience, right? So I don't know better. So how can I do better? And so it got to the point where I did hire a doula of color from an amazing organization, Mama Sana Vibrant Women in Austin, Texas. They provide doulas and midwives. If you are in Austin, Texas, please connect because it is completely free. So they provided me with a doula, and in I think it was my third trimester, she started coming along to, the appointments just to see how things are going. And at the end, I was like feeling a certain way, but I couldn't really identify. I was like, I feel kind of like this feeling in my chest and my stomach. My body was like, hey, girl, there's something wrong. Like, what is happening? And then my doula called it out. She's like, how do you feel about that? Because like the way that the doctor was talking to you, the way that she was treating you, it sounded like there's a lot of microaggressions. And that's when it started to like be, predominant in my head. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe there is something that I've neglected, right? Because my body was telling me something, but I wasn't really listening. I didn't know what to do. And then I got to the point where I was about to deliver my son. And then what happened is my last appointment, she really dismissed me. And it was all about fear-based tactics. I never had a history of preeclampsia. It was the last appointment before taking a week off from work and transitioning to having my baby. And she's like, no, if you don't go now, your baby's going to die. You could be in jeopardy. Like, you need to walk to the hospital, like by myself, without my birth bag, without my husband, nothing set up for my dog, right? And out of fear, I was like, I don't really want to do this, right? But because she's the medical expert, right? I trusted that maybe I should do this because I don't want to lose my baby. I don't want to do anything that could, prevent his health or whatever that was. And she induced me. And that whole experience was so traumatic because she didn't listen. She didn't even deliver my baby. I had another doctor, but I felt like a prisoner in my own body because I was induced. I had a blood pressure cuff. I couldn't have the birth experience that I wanted. And from that experience, the postpartum was even worse. Like the nurses neglected our care. I shared the story with you about how they give you like the postpartum mesh undies, right? And they're like this little thin white underwear that you get from the hospital. I got a couple of those, bled through them, asked for more. And she said, take it to the sink and hand wash it and hang dry it. How? I couldn't even get out of the bed, right? And that was 2019 in one of the major hospitals in Austin, Texas. That wasn't long ago. And I know that my experience isn't the only one because I'm sure that nurse does it repeatedly, right? But in that moment, I just had a baby. I was really like coming out of it from giving birth. And then to hear that, and then it was just after that, so many things about diminishing my experience, right? And so from that day, I pivoted my whole niche, right? Like it was all about serving children and families. I was like, no, I got to do something for women, the birthing community. Like this is not okay, right? I tried to advocate for myself, but nobody was listening, right? I was in that hospital where my husband was asking questions. We were trying to get support around breastfeeding. That didn't happen. We were trying to get support around what was going on and why there was a lack of care. That didn't happen, right? So then after that, I didn't follow up with that doctor, right? I never went back. And how many women experience that where they don't follow up with their doctor after birth?
That is so disheartening. And it's so common, unfortunately, where you have so many people who don't, I think about who don't know how to show up for themselves. I think about you. You're an educated woman. You're married. You are in the field of advocacy. Like you have all the background pedigree to suggest that when you show up speaking articulately, saying what you want, and people still aren't listening. So big question for you. The average mom, especially the average mom of color, if we're just going to break down this niche, is a single mom. They're usually going in either by themselves or with other family members who don't necessarily know more than them, who are not college educated, who are not necessarily as articulate. How do they show, who may have an HMO and don't have the opportunity to pick what doctor they are going to get that day? I know I certainly didn't, for example. So what does the average person do? How do they show up in order to advocate for themselves in situations like that?
Yes, I would say start off with a plan, like know what your rights are, know what your consent is, educate yourself. Education is the best way for advocacy and for making those policy changes. So if you can sit down and find somebody to talk to, or even reach out to me for resources, walk through what you want in your birthing experience, right? How do you want to feel in the time? What do you want from the doctors, or is it a home birth? Identify the key areas of support and what you need, and let's make a list to figure out how we can honor that plan. And then if you can, to find somebody else to vocalize that with you, right? I recognize that if you're a single parent or if you don't have somebody to go with, find a best friend. If you're part of a church, bring a church friend. If you're part of a neighborhood group, I'm sure somebody will be there. You need to have two eyes on it because you're in a vulnerable state, right? To give birth, you're trying to connect and breathe and welcome this baby into the world. There's a lot of emotional energy that comes out. So if you have a plan written out and you talk to your person, then they can help you advocate and remind you like, hey, they're saying this, what comes up for you? And taking moments to pause, right? Because in the medical field, it's a business. They're trying to rush you in and rush you out. and you don't have time to figure out anything, right? So it's like, have a plan, write out the steps, talk to whoever you can find, and make sure that they follow that so that you feel prepared for options, right? Because in pregnancy and birth, things can shift, right? Your birth plan could go out the window if something happens, but you want to be educated on what are the options and operate from a place of confidence and not fear, right? Because fear will change the whole thing with birthing, right? It starts to tighten you up, you don't feel safe, creates this trauma response. And so you want to be in a place where you have everything you need written out, have a plan of action, talk to who they are, and help them point out these key parts and walk you through what you've already discussed, right? And to make sure that's
I think no, you're right. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, not only just having a plan for what you want to do and having a partner to support you, but a lot of people don't know that it's okay to move around with their doctor.
Yes.
And change your doctor and be an advocate for yourself with any doctor that gives you the extra time of day.
Exactly.
Case in point, I had one doctor, I had shingles when I was 39. Yes, girl, pray for me because that was a stressful time in life. I'm too young to have gone through that. It was horrible. And I happened to have been booked with a woman I'd never gone to before. She was what was available. But the nurse before her warned me, she's always late and just know you just have to wait for her. When I got in there, I understood why she was always late. She took extra time with every single person, and including me, that walked in her door. When you see doctors that are on 15-minute increments and they're on time, you know that person's going to get you in and out. There's a pattern there. And I happen to have Kaiser. I have an HMO. So you really have to advocate. And I had one nurse in particular one time who was like, you just got to speak up for yourself. Do not accept the minimum. Keep switching providers till you find the person that you like. And my current provider, she was somebody who happened to be available that particular day. I had a primary care provider. And when I say this woman solved all my problems in a day, whereas my provider, I saw her 6 times and she never got to the root cause of the particular issue I had. And I was just like, and when I switched, she was like, go back to your PCP. I was like, I'm coming back to you. And she was mad. I don't need any more people on my roster. I was like, well, when you're the best at what you do, sis, this is what happens.
Yeah, this is what.
So I say all that to say, like you said, it is so important to, I don't care who I'm pissing off. This is my life.
Yeah, it's your body. It's your baby.
I only get one. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people chopping their things up. That's cool. Chop yourself up all you feel you want to. But this is the rest of my natural life. This is my natural body. And I've got to take care of it. So, So I love that you've pointed out so many great tools. And in a birthing situation, what happens when someone is doing something that has never really been done, or they're trying to show up for themselves and they're coming across racism or sexism and they're being just generally shooed away by a doctor, by a teacher, by someone of power? What's the balance, that fine line for people to be able to walk in what they say and how they act and how they respond to get the results that they're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think in any setting, you really have to check in with yourself first to notice what's coming up, right? Because our body is going to be the first indicator of like an injustice, if something's wrong, right? Sometimes as people, especially people of color, we get somatic experiencing, right? Where we get the tightness in the stomach, we get the headaches or the unexplained body aches and pains because our body's saying, hey, this person wronged me. I don't feel safe in this environment. So first acknowledge what's going on with yourself and give yourself the self-compassion and tools to regulate so that you can come from a place of logic and saying, hey, you said these things, make a note, write things down. And if it's in a work setting, address it to your employer or your HR. And if they're not listening, then the city has departments where they can come and investigate, right? And I didn't know this at all about my city, but they have like a civil rights department where if you're being mistreated, if you're being discriminated against, if you're experiencing anything, you can actually go online for free and submit a claim, and you have all your evidence, and then they go in and they investigate. And then they can ding them and say, hey, you have to go through training. You have to create this environment. Like there's all these systems in place, but we don't know about them, right? So look at your city, go online, it's usually your government website, and you can find that information. And then while that's happening, see if there's any allies at your job, right? So when somebody's saying something and you say, well, what do you mean by that? Then other people are going to back you up and be like, yeah, what did you mean by saying that? Because then it gives them an opportunity to explain, right?
Yes. So as you're saying this, all I kept thinking in the back of my head was, be a Karen. Be a Karen of color. You hear me? Be a Karen of color and speak up for yourself. And I think that because culturally right now, everybody's trying to not be a Karen.
Right.
So, but I also understand that that is why white women have always received what the hell they want, because they have always advocated for themselves. Something as simple as, for example, I went to Red Lobster. I'm real hood like that. Okay. I went to Red Lobster to go have a good meal. Okay. And I had some scallops, and the waitress happened to be a white woman. And my scallops were cold in the middle, meaning they were probably frozen. They reheated them. It was terrible. And I didn't want to say anything. My husband's white, granted. He was like, say something. I was like, you don't understand, bro. Okay. If I say something, then I'm the angry Black woman that, you know, finds something wrong because I want a free meal. I didn't want a free meal. I'm happy to pay for my meal. I'm happy to tip. I'm not that stereotype, but they see me that way. So something as simple as the food that I eat, I have paused to advocate for myself. And then I told them, and very timidly, you know, they're cold on the inside. And she was like, oh, girl, say something, because I'm going to take these things back. I'm taking this off your way. I didn't want you to take it off. She's like, that's okay. You always speak up for yourself. And she taught me that. And this was a while ago, but still, in that moment, I had to realize from a stranger who happened to be bringing me food to the restaurant, there are people who over advocate in areas that are unimportant, and people who under advocate in areas that are really important. And so I think the bottom line I'm trying to say is, it's not what you say, it's going to be how. And in each setting, I think it's important to assess, how is this person going to perceive me? So I don't want to go in with my perceived notions of what I think they think of me. But I have to go in understanding that I have a right, and yes, also a desire to be cared for. And so I think that, you know, all of that's important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that that's a really important thing, because to be assertive, I think culture has painted women as like, no, you have to be submissive, you have to be timid, you can't speak your mind, it's not welcomed here. It's like, no, take up all the space. Body language, shoulders back, chest open, say, you know, excuse me, like, this is cold. Can you please reheat it, or send me a fresh plate, right? And then they're going to respond, because it's an assertive way of saying, hey, my need isn't met. I'm at this establishment for this specific thing, right? So to be assertive, it means with your body language, with your tone. It doesn't mean that to be assertive means that you're angry, that you're rude, or you're crass. It means that, you're feeling empowered to make this change because it's not right. And so to be assertive means that it also requires the practice, right? Because a lot of people that aren't assertive view it as a negative, but it's not. It's just another tool.
It's so true. And I have so many thoughts around that, because I know, I hang around a bunch of very powerful women. I mean, whether it's because they have been through so much, or because they know so much, or because people are just drawn and attracted to them. And as a woman of color, I feel like that's our biggest crux, right? We hold down everything, right? We have to be stronger. I know specifically Black women in 2016, we were the most educated group on the planet with the most degrees. And so we set ourselves up for success, because we got to take care of the family. We may or may not have a partner. We got to be overly educated. We got to have a job. We got to be there. We got to assert ourselves. So we put on this cloak of strength, but then we don't always necessarily know how to scale that back in times where we can be in our soft era. So that, how do you walk that fine line, knowing that it's important to be assertive? It's important, like you said, chest up, shoulders back, baby. I walk around. I live in Orange County, California. Okay, there's a lot of people who don't look like me walking around here, and I walk around sometimes so much so I
take up that space. You belong there,
girl. But then then I see people looking at me like, who does this highfalutin Negro think that she is? I know who I am, and I am that girl that you think that I am. But I also understand I got to see you again, and I got to work around these people. So I walk a tight line of being exactly who I am. Hello, filter free. I'm gonna be exactly who I am, but also understanding that I'm not here to rub anybody the wrong way and superimpose myself on anybody. How do you walk that fine line of knowing and making sure that you speak up for yourself without burning down the whole house? It is so difficult. So I really want to hear somebody else's advice.
I think it is really hard, because you're thinking about how you respond, how you fit in, how people perceive you. But at the end of the day, all you can control is how you are, right? You can't control how much space you take up for them in their head. If they have a problem, they can come talk to you directly, right?
Period.
And so it's like, what do you have control over? Your thoughts, your feelings, and how you respond to others. Anything outside of that, it's like, hey, if you have a problem with my confidence, it's really about you, right? And your insecurities. Because why am I going to be less and let my light shine a little less so that you're comfortable, right?
Right.
It's like, no, let that light shine in Orange County, wherever you go. They're going to know who you are, right? But then also just going to say that you're worthwhile. It's okay.
I love it. And I needed to hear it from you so that I wasn't saying it because people think I'm being cocky. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, for real, like, that's your problem. That's something you got to deal with you and your God. Okay. Praise
right.
the Lord.
If they're triggered by you and they're insecure, okay, go to therapy and work it out. Or, address it with somebody else. That's not my problem to take on. You don't have the energy for that.
Yes, I love it. And that's exactly it. So I want to switch gears and I want to specifically talk about your business. So you've created this amazing business of yours that you've been helping women specifically advocate for themselves in the birthing space. I want to know more about it because I want to talk about some additional awesome things that are going to be coming up in the future for you.
Yeah, so I've always loved to advocate for people, whether it's children, minorities, women. I'm really passionate about mothers and making sure that, they have the resources and tools. And so I provide therapy for them. I help meet them where they're at. We talk about past trauma triggers and experiences so they can have the best birthing experience. A lot of times, if they've had a poor experience, it impacts the next pregnancy or it kind of dims that. And so I want to make sure that they feel supported, educated, that they know how to have the tools to educate and advocate for themselves so that they feel empowered throughout the whole process, right? And then after that, it's like working with them in the fourth trimester, helping them adjust to motherhood, right? Because that's a lot. And change of identity, different roles. If you have a partner, if you don't, if you're working, if you're not, everything changes once that baby gets here. And so I want to make sure that they're feeling supported and safe and understood. And so I really work directly with them. And then in addition to create support is I do work also within corporations to include safe, creative spaces, right? How do we make it more inclusive? How do we talk about how menopause affects women, right, in the workplace? And how can we support them? So I'm here to advocate for everybody, but my focus right now and my mission, I feel like God has called me to this purpose because it is like heart-centered and it's what I love. Like, even if it wasn't a career, I would find a way to do it, so my clients that meet with me are like, yeah, you're very passionate. It's like, I want to encourage you along this whole process. And I don't want anyone to ever feel alone because that's the worst feeling is that I don't know how to do it because I feel alone. So I want to be that tool to help them.
I love that. And I feel your passion. And that is what's necessary in order to really fuel this. How does someone get in touch with you? Like, are these virtual classes? Is this a one-on-one thing? How does someone get in touch with you in order to utilize your services?
Absolutely. So it's just my website. It's my name, shanazikone.com. You can click the contact and book a consultation. I do free consults just so I can feel what your energy is, what questions you have to see if I'm a great fit. And I'm very honest. If I feel like I'm not a good fit, or if we meet and we're not, I'm going to find you somebody, right? Because it's not about me, it's about you. And you took that step to reach out. So I'm going to see it through, even though you're not a client, I'm going to help you find the right person. So email or website is the best way to contact me, as well as like corporations or tech companies that want that in their companies. Then they can also reach out through the same way.
I love that. So I'm a pregnant woman and I don't know what to do. I'm coming to you. What's the first thing you help me with?
Yeah. So I check in to see how they're feeling first, like what's coming up for them. And we do a lot of somatic experiences, like where are you holding tension? Where are you feeling the tightness? What are things that you're looking forward to this pregnancy? What are things that you're scared about? We kind of go through an overview about what you want and what you want to focus on. And then we plug in these tools and resources. So as we work together, we're building trust and rapport so we can get to those deeper parts, right? Because what if you have some traumatic experiences or you have a mother wound and now that you're in your third trimester, your mom's not going to be there, right? What do we do about it? How do we build a safe environment for you so that you can thrive and nurture yourself and your baby? And so it's really all customized. So everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to have different needs. Some people have high anxiety. Some people have high stress. Some people don't know resources. I'm going to find you where to get the diapers. I'm going to tell you how to get a doula. I'm going to walk you through everything. And then I want you to feel empowered to take that next step. And if you can't, I'm going to do it with you, right? Because anytime I have a client, even if they're virtual, I feel like I'm walking side by side with them. I'm here to carry the load. Nothing is too much. We can get through it. And so I want to instill that peace and that hope in them so they can have the best experience.
I love that. So this sounds amazing. I know everybody's like, okay, I want this. affordability? Is this something that someone would just pay out of pocket? Is there state funding for this? How does something like this work?
Yeah, so I would love to get state funding. I keep applying. I haven't had any grant success around that specifically, but I'd like to create programs around this so that it is accessible, right? Sometimes I offer free access to some of my services, right? Or I connect you with other resources. It is out of network, but I will also meet you where you're at as well, because I recognize there's a disparity with therapists of color, right? Sometimes you want to work with someone that looks like you, so you feel safe, like you don't have to explain those extra layers, right? And so I'm here for that, to help make it equitable as well.
I love that. Well, I love the fact that you are doing so much in this arena. It's clear that we need to continue to advocate for you to get the funding that you need in order for this to be a service that everybody has access to, because it's so necessary. And the way that you have framed your business in order to support the niche of women of color, of families, of children, and people who have not been seen, especially in the medical field, for centuries. I think it's very noble, and we need to duplicate you somehow. So as you're continuing to build your team, I know that I'm a huge fan of the work that you're doing as a mother of 4 and who's had very difficult birthing situations of my own, and my best friend being a midwife and working in the Miami community doing the exact same thing. I know there's funding out there for you, and I will definitely connect the two of you. I know that there is a need out there, and we're going to continue to bring people to you. So please reach out to Shanaz about this, and get your support for your situation. And so I really want to thank you for sharing your story, for sharing your passion, for sharing your desire to help others in such a beautiful, unique way. And we need more of you. We need more people like you. So keep doing the work that you're doing. Be encouraged. And you taught me something, and I'm going to be reminded to continue to stand up for myself in all situations, so that I can receive the best that life has for me too. So thank you.
I thank you too. And also, just a quick thing to say, I know we talked all about mothers and women. I also love to support men and dads and helping them navigate that too. I don't want to leave anybody off the table. It's very inclusive. So if there's somebody that identifies as a father, a male, please reach out as well. I'd love to support you and normalize this experience and give you the space you need to process, because it's a change for you as well.
That is a whole beautiful wing of your services that, man, when you get to that place where you can do all I see big things for you, because it's so necessary. So yeah, we don't want to forget about the dads. They are very important.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I've put Shanaz's information here at the bottom. It's been scrolling for a little while. I want you guys to reach out to her. Please follow her on social media. She has the best posts. And again, advocacy is her middle name. Literally, that's what she does. And I think that she's a beautiful resource that you should utilize. I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Filter Free with Tahira Renee Kristi. I'm looking forward to our next episode. Until then, you guys be blessed, live in love, and have a beautiful day.